أعزائي الطلاب السلام عليكم. اليوم راح نبلش في chapter 5 problem solving with sequential logic structure. طبعا chapter 5 هو تطبيق لكل الأشياء اللي أخذناها في chapter 4. Here we will use sequential logic. We will have other logic, decision logic, looping logic in the next chapters. But now we will use only sequential logic and all the methods and techniques that we took in chapter 4. If you remember in chapter 4, the system you are developing should be divided into modules. Each module will have its own algorithm. So here in this module, for example, we have instruction 1, instruction 2, instruction 3 until the end of the module. We are following the sequence of instructions. So we start with the first, second, third, and this is what we mean by sequential logic structure. We don't jump from one instruction to different sequenced instructions. We follow the sequence as it is one by one as shown on this slide. Okay, for any problem, you need a solution includes algorithms, instructions, flowcharts, symbols, paths, interactivity diagram, coupling diagram, all these things. So all these things should be included in our solution. And in this problem, we have this problem. It's a person, a woman, Mary Smith. She want to deposit $2,000 in a bank, and she want to compare the best or the largest amount she get among different banks according to this equation. هاي equation اللي هي investment. If you deposit any amount of money in a bank, it will grow in this regarding or according to this equation. So the amount will be the principal, the original amount, multiplied by 1 plus interest divide by M. M is the number of years. M is the compound interval. It's how many times a year the investment or the profit will be added to the original amount. So it can be 2, 3, 4 times a year. So الانفستمنت rate divided by اللي هو الام to the power n اللي هو number of years multiplied by m. Okay, so how we solve a problem like this? So we have to decide which data we need, what should be the results, and what's the required processing and the solution alternatives. And if you remember, this is what we called PAS or problem analysis chart. So the given data for this problem is the principal, the amount, which is 2,000 in this case, the interest, and which is varied from one bank to another, and the number of years, and in this case it's 5 years, and the compound interval, it depends on the bank. So it's how many times it will add the profit to the amount. It depends on the bank. The result is the principal plus the interest at the end of the time period. So the interest الأوريجينال amount plus the profit، يعني كم قيمة الأرباح مع المبلغ الرئيسي. So what's the required processing? Required processing is this equation. The amount will grow with this equation that we explained before. البرنسبل اللي هو الرأس مال الأصلي multiplied by 1 plus اللي هو سعر الفائدة I divide by how many times we will add the profit to the original amount to the power how many years multiplied by m. Okay. Solution alternatives, we have different solution alternatives. We have the first alternative, enter all data as variables. So we don't have any constants. So the principal can change, the interest can change, the number of years can be 6, the compound interval can be changed, which is the best solution. This is why we mark it with star. Okay, so it will be applied to more cases, not only for this problem. يعني we can ممكن نستخدم هذا الحل مش بس على 2000 و 5 years. We can for different principles and different interest and different number of years. Enter principal interest as constants. Of course, this will make this solution only apply to this problem specifically only. So we will not take this alternative. Process one bank in one run, which is better because each time we will run on one bank using the interest in this bank, using the number of years, using the compound interval in the bank, and get the amount. And then we run another bank, then the third bank, so we get the better bank, which gives the largest amount after 5 years. So it's better than number four, which is processing all the banks together, because this will make it complicated. So if we process one bank, it will be simpler. So the simpler solution always better than complicated ones. Okay. So we'll adopt the one with the stars. Okay. After developing الباس we go and develop اللي هو الانتراكتيفيتي chart, and this is very important step, how to divide this solution for the problem into modules. So of course we will have a control module. As usual, we have the interest control, and will have need to enter the data using a read model. We have to calculate the result using the calculation model, and we need to print and the report of the results using the print model. So usually these three models you will find it in a lot of solution interactivity diagrams. Okay, so then we go to the third step, which is the IPO chart. The IPO chart, as you remember, it's the input process output chart. So it will use the information in the pass and in the interactivity diagram. So the input will be beginning principal, how much it will be. Then we have the interest. We have to input the interest rate with the number of years, with number of times اللي هو الأم interest is compound yearly. The processing is the algorithm. We can take it from the past, but here we can put it in like steps: step 1, step 2, step 3. So it's a sequential algorithm. Starts by enter data. You change interest rate to 100 نحولهم للمئات, and all of this will be in the read model. The second step, calculating ending principal using the equation. This should be in the calculate model using this equation. And finally, the third step, sequential step, is print required result, and this will be included in the print model. So the output will be what we will output. What the result will be ending principal plus the interest. We print or output the interest, and all the input data should be go to the output too. Okay, so this is what we call the IPO chart. Which step in which model? What's the input and what's the output? Okay, so we go directly to the coupling diagram between these models. If you remember coupling diagram, how the modules share data between them. So it's a little similar to the interactivity diagram, but here, for example, الموديل interest control has اللي هم الفاريبلز P و I و N و M. Of course, this is not the مش الأسماء variables اللي should be used. إذا بتتذكروا حكينا إنه اسم variable should be descriptive. So P, the variable name should be principal. I, interest. N, years. M, time. A, amount. So, but we write them here because there's no space to write them there. So this is the variable names in the matter of fact. So the interest control first will pass these local variables, P, I, N, M, as explained here, will be sent to the read model. Will be sent to the read model by reference. Why we are sending them by reference? Because we need the read to change these values. راح يغير القيم تبعونهم. لما يتغيروا في الريد موديل بما إنهم passed by reference, we have two arrows here. Then it will be changed for interest control. So if he input the principal 2000, then the principal in the control will be interest control will be. So the interest control will pass all these parameters by reference because it needed to be filled in the read model. Okay. So when we read the principal, the interest, the number of years, and the اللي هي time, it will be changed in the color model interest control. Then after we read all these information or data, then we send it to calculate the final amount. So we send the principal, which is 2000 for example, by value. Why we send it by value? Because it's one arrow sided from one side. Because we don't need to change the principal, and the interest we don't need to change it. The number of years we don't need to change it because all these are entered from here, so they are not need to be changed. So but we need to calculate the amount according to the equation. So this is why we send the A as by reference. Okay, and finally we send all these variables to print them, and because they are not need to be, there is no need to change any of these variables. All of them are sent to print model by value. Okay, so this is the coupling diagram and explaining how to share data among all these models. If you remember, then should have our external documentation, including the data dictionary. That dictionary will explain all the variables we use and all the information regarding these variables. So we have, for example, item principal, the variable name we choose principal, type numeric real because it's money, and المودلز اللي بيظهر فيها راح يكون الانترست كنترول as local variable، وفي الريد وفي الكالكوليت وفي البرنت as parameter passed from الانترست كنترول. البسيدونوم موديول none، لانه احنا لهم نستخدمهم كلهم نفس الاسم principal، كلهم في كل سواء كان في الاكتوال او الفورمال بارامترز. عشان هيك ايش ما في له بسيدونوم. الايرور تشيك طبعا هون مش حاط ايرور تشيك، but you can for example put the error check انه البرنسبل اقل من او يساوي 0. So إذا كان اليوزر دخل أي value أقل من أو يساوي 0 معناته هذا إيش؟ error should be checked and should give an error message. الانترست الايتم كيف نعبر عنه؟ variable name interest. إيش التايب تبعه؟ numeric real. الانترست وين موجود هو أصلا؟ في الانترست كنترول as local، موجود في الريد والكالكوليت والبرنت as parameter. طبعا هون مش حاطط سيدينوم واي لانه احنا بنستخدم بس ايش؟ اسم انترست فاريبل نيم انترست، مش مستخدمينه باي اذر نيم. الايرور تشيك هنا ايش؟ يو كان كم اب with any error check here none. النمبر اوف years، الفاريبل نيم here years، النمريك ريال اللي هو موجود لوكال في الانترست كنترول، بارامتر في الريد والكالكوليت والبرنت، وما في له بسيدينوم واحنا مستخدمينه. ايش يعني ما في له بسيدينوم؟ احنا مستخدمينه بنفس الاسم هذا اللي هو اليرز، مستخدمينه سواء كان في الانترست كنترول او في الريد او في الكالكوليت او في البرنت. اوكي. And so this is the dictionary that will be will explain all the variables we are using in our solution. Now, as usual, you have to write the algorithm for the whole system. So the whole system, the algorithm is first you need to process the read. You send the principal, will interest, will year, will time, actual parameters by reference. Then in the interest control module, the second step is processing calculate model, and you send principal, will interest, will years, will time by value, will amount by reference because the amount will be changed by ايش؟ applying في الكالكوليت اللي هي الايكويشن اللي حكينا عنها قبل شوي. And finally the interest control will process the print model and send all the variables by value to be printed and then, as we said before, interest control will finish with end. So the flow chart for this is interest control في الellipse. Then we process a model. So this is why we put it a rectangle في the flow chart with double sided. So this is a model, not a statement or instruction. Then after that, the calculate model, then the print model, then the end. So it's sequential logic between all these models. The pseudocode, you can write it, it's something um, very close to the programming language, but here you can see you can write it in Python, you can write it in any programming language, or you can write it in your own words, or you can repeat what is written in the algorithm. Annotation Annotation here, for example, it's some type of notes or hints. For example, you need to enter all data from the keyboard. Calculate the amount here. It's explaining each step what will do or perform prints data and amount. Okay. The test here, we start transfer to read, then we go to read model, then transfer to calculate, then it will have to go after finishing the read, then it will go to the calculate module, then transfer to the print model. Okay, we have here internal documentation. If you remember, it's the internal documentation. It's something you write it inside the code. So you can write, for example, this model will calculate, this model will enter the data, this model will do something. So it's some remarks inside your algorithm, or it will be inside your coding. External documentation, of course, it's same as in internal documentation. In the matter of fact, external documentation, including the path, including the interactivity diagram, and all these things should be included in your solution. Okay. So have we finished? No. After this, we start writing now the algorithm for the read. For the read algorithm, the algorithm read will take the principal by reference, interest by reference, will years by reference, will time by reference. Then it will enter principal user, بعدين بحول الانترست للpercent by dividing by 100, then exit. So if you see here, the read model starts with ellipse read. Then we have this parallelogram. This means we have to enter principal, its input, enter the principal, interest, will years, will time. Then we have here rectangle في الفلو chart اللي هو بده يحسب الانترست، بده يحوله لمئوية نسبة مئوية percentage. So interest equal interest divided by 100. Then we will go to the exit اللي هو الellipse exit. هنا بينتهي الموديل تبعنا اللي هو أي واحد اللي هو الموديل ريد. طبعا البسيدو كود is the same thing you can write in Python or anything you want. لأن الانوتيشن، الملاحظات اللي أنت تحب تحطها هنا. The most important testing. For example هنا إيش دخل البرنسبل 2000، الانترست 5، بعدين تحولت ل 5%، الييرز 5 والتايم اللي هو 2. اوكي، بتحط الانترنال، اي internal documentation واي external documentation you are using in your solution. اوكي، في الكالكوليت موديل طبعا هاي الالجوريثم اللي هو فيه الاكسبريشن اللي حكينا عنه قبل شوي. فاذا بنحط الكالكوليت والستارت وبنحسب الاماونت يساوي برنسبل مالتيبلايد، نفس المعادله اللي اخذناها سابقا. then it will exist. So we'll calculate, it will be saved all this, the result in the amount. So the amount, if you remember, it passed by reference. So عشان هيك الامount when you get the amount 3000 for example، معناته ايش في الكنترول it will be changed to 3000. خلينا نشوف التستنج. التستنج الاماونت ايش equal 2000 multiplied، we will ايش نطبق الابلاي اللي هي هاي المعادله ونشوف الاماونت شو يساوي 2560. So testing إذا كان الموديل تبعنا will come up with this result for the amount, then the testing is right. And finally the print, its output, so it's in parallelogram, will print everything اللي هو principal, interest, will year, will time, will amount, and everything. So this is the flowchart, this is the algorithm, and this is the pseudocode. and this is the annotation. Will testing print what is required or not, ونحط remarks and so. Okay, so this is our chapter, and we will put homework for that later on. Assalamu alaikum.